The wind was sharp that evening, carrying the smell of rain and metal through the human settlement on the alien trade world of Zarkith. Captain Ryan had just returned from a dangerous mission, his boots heavy with dust, his muscles sore from days without rest. He wanted nothing more than to sleep, but the market square was crowded, buzzing with whispers. Something important was happening. At the center stood the alien Baron, tall, imposing, his scaled skin glimmering under the pale light. Around him, armored guards stood like statues, their hands on their weapons. Ryan felt dozens of alien eyes turn toward him as he stepped closer. The Baron's piercing yellow gaze found him instantly. Without a word, the Baron made a sharp hand signal. Two of his guards brought forward a large, black metal box. It was almost as tall as Ryan's waist, sealed with strange alien locks and marked with silver symbols Ryan didn't understand. The box was set down at his feet with a heavy thud. The Baron stepped closer, his shadow falling over Ryan. "For your bravery, human," he said in a low, cold voice. "My gift." A murmur swept through the crowd. Ryan looked down at the box, feeling a strange unease. Inside, something moved, soft, quick, like the shift of a small animal. Then he heard it. A faint gasp, almost too quiet to notice. His brow furrowed. "What's in it?" Ryan asked. The Baron's thin lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Something priceless. Protect it well." Then he turned and walked away, his guards following without another word. Ryan was left standing alone with the mysterious box. The crowd began to scatter, but some lingered at the edges, watching him with curious, almost fearful expressions. He knelt beside the box, running his fingers over the cold surface. The locks were advanced alien tech, yet one of them seemed almost easy to open, as if it had been left that way on purpose. The wind picked up, whistling through the square. He could hear it now, breathing, quick and nervous, coming from inside. His instincts screamed at him to open it, but another voice inside warned him. This could be dangerous. A trap. Or worse, something that would pull him into the Baron's politics. Still, Ryan was not the kind of man to turn away from a mystery. With a deep breath, he unlocked the first seal. The metal hissed softly. The second lock clicked free under his touch. His heart pounded harder with each sound. As the last lock opened, the lid lifted slightly on its own. Warm, dim light spilled out from inside. Ryan's eyes widened. Inside, curled up in the corner, was a young alien girl. Her skin shimmered faintly in shades of silver and blue. Her large eyes stared at him with fear, and her small hands clutched a thin blanket to her chest. She whispered something in a language he didn't know, but the fear in her voice was clear. Ryan froze. This was no ordinary gift. This was trouble. For a long moment, Ryan just stared. The alien girl didn't move, her wide, shimmering eyes locked on his. She looked young, too young to be caught up in the dangerous games of a Baron. Her breathing was quick, her shoulders trembling under the thin blanket. Slowly, Ryan crouched beside the box so he wouldn't tower over her. "It's all right," he said softly, though he wasn't sure if she could understand him. She pressed herself against the back wall of the box, as far from him as she could go. Her lips moved, whispering words in a strange, flowing tongue. The sound was beautiful yet heavy with fear. Ryan noticed her wrists, thin and delicate, but marked with faint red lines, like she'd been restrained for a long time. His jaw tightened. Whoever she was, she hadn't been treated like a gift. He reached for the blanket to help her out, but she flinched and pulled it tighter around her. "It's okay," he said again, keeping his voice calm. "I'm not going to hurt you." Her gaze flicked to his face, searching for something, truth, maybe. Then she looked down at her own hands, and very slowly, she reached into the folds of the blanket. When her hand came out, it held a small, sealed envelope. It was alien-made, but on the front was a crest Ryan recognized, the Baron's personal seal. He took it gently from her fingers and broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper written in universal script, the trade language used across dozens of worlds. It had only one line: "Protect her, or we all die." Ryan's stomach dropped. He looked at the girl again. She was watching him closely now, as if she could tell he had just read something dangerous. Outside, the wind shifted. From the corner of his eye, Ryan saw movement. Shadows slipping between the buildings, too fast and too quiet to be normal pedestrians. Someone was watching them. He snapped the box shut, leaving the lid unlatched so she could breathe, and lifted it in both hands. The weight was awkward, but he could carry it. The streets were growing darker, the marketplace emptying fast. He could feel eyes on his back with every step. Whoever the girl was, she wasn't safe here. And if the Baron's warning was true, neither was he. Ryan's boots hit the stone path hard as he left the market square behind. The weight of the box seemed heavier now, not just from the girl inside but from the danger pressing in around them. The narrow streets twisted like a maze, lit only by faint, flickering lamps. Shadows danced across the walls, and every now and then, Ryan caught the sound of soft footsteps that weren't his own. He reached his small home on the edge of the settlement, a place far from the main roads. Once inside, he locked the door and set the box down on the floor. The girl inside was silent, but he could feel her eyes on him as he moved around the room. He unlatched the lid again. She was still curled up, but now her blanket had slipped slightly, revealing a small scar on her arm. It wasn't a normal wound. It was a clean, precise mark, as if made by surgical tools. At the center was a faint metallic glint. Ryan crouched down. "What's that?" he asked quietly, more to himself than to her. Her eyes widened, and she shook her head quickly, pressing her hand over the scar. Then she pointed at him, then at the door, and shook her head again, her meaning clear. "Don't go out there." The memory of the Baron's note burned in Ryan's mind. "Protect her, or we all die." He was about to speak when the lights in the room flickered once, then went out completely. Silence. Then, from outside, came the sound of boots on stone. Many boots, moving slowly. Ryan reached for his plasma pistol, his body tense. A faint blue glow spilled under the door, the light from alien scanning devices. Whoever was out there, they were searching for something. Or someone. The girl's breathing quickened. She slid out of the box and pressed herself against the wall, her bare feet silent on the floor. She pointed at the small back window. Ryan nodded, understanding. He moved to the window, but froze when he heard it. Low, guttural voices speaking in a language he didn't know, and the click of weapons being loaded. They were surrounding the house. Ryan looked back at the girl. She was staring at him, her eyes wide and pleading. No words were needed. They had to get out now. Ryan's heart was pounding now, the sound of boots and alien voices closing in from every side. He moved quickly, grabbing a small pack from the wall and stuffing it with ammo, water, and a few tools. The girl stayed close to the back window, her silver-blue skin faintly glowing in the dark. She glanced at him again, urging him to hurry. Outside, the blue scanning lights swept across the windows like search beams. Ryan crouched low, moving silently toward the girl. He carefully pushed the window open, the hinges creaking in the quiet night. He lifted her through first. She landed softly on the ground outside, her bare feet barely making a sound. Ryan followed, pulling the window shut behind him. The alley was narrow and dark, the air cold against their skin. They moved quickly, keeping close to the walls. Every few steps, Ryan glanced over his shoulder, catching glimpses of moving shadows, too many to count. The girl tugged on his sleeve and pointed down a side path, one that led toward the old industrial ruins outside the settlement. Ryan nodded. The ruins would give them cover, but it also meant less chance of help if they were caught. They reached the edge of the buildings, but just as they turned the corner, a beam of blue light swept over them. "Stop!" a deep alien voice shouted. Ryan didn't stop. He shoved the girl forward, sprinting into the maze of rusted metal and broken walls. Behind them came the sound of heavy boots, running now. Plasma fire lit the darkness, blue bolts striking the walls around them. Ryan ducked behind a fallen beam, pulling the girl down with him. She was shaking, but her eyes were focused, alert. She pointed toward a narrow gap between two collapsed walls. They crawled through, the space barely wide enough. On the other side, they found themselves in a shadowed courtyard, hidden from the main streets. Ryan leaned against the wall, catching his breath. The girl reached for his arm and traced something on his skin with her finger. A small circle, then a line through it. She repeated it twice, her expression serious. Ryan didn't know the meaning, but he understood one thing: this wasn't random. She was being hunted for a reason. Somewhere in the darkness, a low mechanical hum began to rise. It wasn't boots this time, it was something bigger, heavier, and it was coming straight toward them. The hum grew louder until Ryan could feel it in his chest. A spotlight swept across the courtyard, blinding for a second. He pulled the girl into the shadows just as a large hovercraft passed above, scanning the ground with long beams of light. They waited until the noise faded into the distance before moving again. The girl led him through a narrow passage that opened into the back road leading toward the Baron's private estate. Ryan hesitated. Going to the Baron now was risky, but he needed answers, and the Baron was the only one who might tell him the truth. When they reached the estate, Ryan's gut tightened. The tall iron gates stood open, and the guards who normally stood watch were nowhere to be seen. The air smelled faintly of smoke and burnt metal. Inside, the grand hall was in chaos. Furniture overturned, scorch marks on the walls. At the center, half sitting against a pillar, was the Baron. His scaled chest rose and fell heavily, a deep wound glowing faintly from alien plasma burns. The moment he saw Ryan, his sharp eyes brightened with urgency. You brought her," he rasped. Ryan knelt beside him, keeping the girl close. "What is going on? Why is she being hunted?" The Baron's gaze shifted to the girl. His voice softened. "She is my daughter." Ryan blinked, stunned. "Your daughter?" The Baron gave a slow nod. "Half human, half of me, half of your kind." He coughed, his voice rough. "She is proof of something the galaxy is not ready to accept, proof that our species can unite. Not just in trade or war, but in blood." Ryan felt the weight of the words sink in. "And that's why they want her dead? They fear her," the Baron said, grimacing in pain. "If she lives, she could unite two worlds. If she dies, the old hatreds remain." The girl's hand slipped into Ryan's, small and trembling. The Baron's eyes locked onto his. "You must keep her safe, no matter the cost. You are human, you will not be suspected at first. Use that. Hide her. Protect her." Before Ryan could answer, a distant explosion shook the floor. The Baron's gaze hardened. "They have found us." Ryan looked at the girl, then back to the wounded Baron. There was no time to argue, no time to think. He would protect her. Whatever came next, he was all she had left. The sound of the explosion was still echoing when Ryan heard a new noise. Deep, powerful engines overhead. He looked through a shattered window and froze. A human warship was descending, its massive shadow stretching across the Baron's estate. The ship bore the colors of the Earth Alliance military, his own people. Relief almost touched him, but it didn't last. The vessel's landing was too aggressive, too fast. The ramp dropped with a loud crash, and armored soldiers poured out, weapons ready. At their head was Commander Hale, a man Ryan had once served under. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold. "Ryan," Hale called out, stepping forward. "We're here for the girl. Hand her over, and no one gets hurt." Ryan's stomach tightened. "You don't even know what's going on here." Hale gave a small, humorless smile. "I know enough. She's valuable and dangerous. The Council wants her, and they're paying well. Don't make this harder than it has to be." Ryan's grip on the girl's hand tightened. She pressed against his side, her breathing quickening. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. "You're working for them," Ryan said slowly, his voice low. "For credits." Hale's smile vanished. "I'm working for survival. Out here, loyalty doesn't buy food." He raised his hand, and the soldiers stepped forward, weapons aimed. Behind Ryan, the Baron tried to stand, but his wound made him stumble. "Do not trust them, human," he growled, his voice strained. They will take her, and she will disappear forever. Ryan's mind raced. He couldn't fight an entire squad head-on. Not here, not with the girl in the open. He needed a way out, fast. One of Hale's soldiers moved closer, reaching for the girl. Instinct took over. Ryan pulled his plasma pistol and fired a warning shot into the ground. Sparks flew. "Back off!" he barked. "She stays with me." For a moment no one moved. The air was thick with tension. Then Hale's smile returned, slow, dangerous. "You just made yourself an enemy of your own people, Captain." Ryan didn't answer. He turned, pulling the girl toward the side door. Hale's voice followed him, low and certain. "You can't run forever. We'll find you." Ryan didn't look back. He already knew. This fight had just become much bigger. Ryan ran through the side corridors of the Baron's estate, the girl's small hand gripping his. Behind them, the sound of boots and shouting grew louder. Both alien assassins and human soldiers were now inside, their footsteps echoing through the halls. They burst into the courtyard, the night air cold against their skin. Flames from earlier explosions lit the sky in a red-orange glow. The only way out was through the broken front gate, but it was already filling with armed figures. Ryan pulled the girl behind a collapsed pillar just as plasma bolts tore into the stone. He peeked out and saw Hale's men advancing from the left, while shadowy alien hunters moved in from the right. They were surrounded. The girl looked up at him, her eyes wide but steady. She placed her small hand against his cheek and spoke in perfect, clear English for the first time. "You are my family now." The words hit Ryan like a surge of fire. There was no room left for fear. He would not let them take her. Not while he could still stand. He rose from cover and fired toward the nearest attackers, forcing them to scatter. The girl stayed low, moving only when he pulled her along. The air was filled with the crack of plasma fire, the hiss of burning stone, and the shouts of men and aliens alike. One alien hunter leapt from the shadows, blade raised. Ryan turned just in time, blocking the strike with the butt of his rifle before firing point-blank. The hunter fell, but another took his place. Hale's voice rang out over the chaos. "Ryan, you can't win this." Ryan's answer was another volley of shots, forcing Hale's soldiers to duck for cover. He grabbed a smoke grenade from his belt, pulled the pin, and hurled it toward the gate. The courtyard filled with thick, choking smoke. Through the haze, Ryan led the girl toward a narrow gap in the wall, one he'd noticed earlier while approaching the estate. They slipped through just as the smoke began to clear, disappearing into the dark streets beyond. Behind them, the battle still raged, but Ryan didn't slow down. Every step was a promise to keep her safe, to protect her from both the enemies they knew and the ones yet to come. As they vanished into the night, the girl squeezed his hand. He looked down at her and gave a single nod. They weren't just running anymore. They were fighting for a future.